I like buying vacant properties. Now, why is that? Well, vacant properties have some advantages over fully occupied properties. Number one, they are going to be cheaper. You can get that property for a lot less money than a fully occupied property. Why is that? Because commercial properties are valued based on the amount of income that they generate. If the property's empty, it's not generating any income, so naturally the value is going to be lower than if you had tenants in the building. So you get a better deal on the property. You can always put tenants in it later. Number two is adding value to the property. You add value to the property by putting tenants in that vacant property. So when you buy a vacant building, you go to your lender, and let's say, just for the sake of easy numbers, that you're getting this building for $1 million. Now, if you go to your lender and say, I want to borrow $1 million for this building, he's probably going to say no, and he's only going to give you maybe 50 or 60% of that much for that property. So if you put this property under contract, and during the period of that contract you go out and you get tenant for the building and generate the income, and you have somebody signed on the lease, then your property is going to be worth more. But you already have it under contract for the vacant price. Then your lender is going to be more likely to give you the money that you're asking for, or maybe close to it. You might not get all the way there, but you'll have a better shot at getting closer to it and having to come up with less cash or no cash at all. So that's the second reason I can add value to the property. The third reason that I like vacant buildings is I get to start over with my lease. When you buy a building that's occupied, you have to take whatever lease comes with it. You have to honor the lease that's currently in force, and you can't get around that unless there's been a bankruptcy involved with the previous owner. Then the leases become null and void and you can start over. But if that's not the case, you have to honor whatever lease is in place, and it might not be to your liking. There might be terms in that lease that are not the best deal for the landlord. So I like starting with a clean slate, no tenants, and I can put my lease in, a triple net lease with my terms that I want to have for these tenants. So I'm not buying someone else's problems. I get to start with my own terms, my own lease, and start fresh. Start with a clean slate. So those are some of the reasons I like buying vacant buildings. There are some other things that I like about vacant buildings too. Like, I can go in and renovate that building. I can change anything I want in that property. I don't have to worry about whether or not the tenant's going to like it or not, or I don't have to worry about getting in the tenant's way or having them get in my way. I can go in and do whatever work I want to do on the property as well. So that's another good reason. And that one's probably not as important as the first three, but it's getting up there, and I really like being able to do renovations and not have to worry about whether or not I'm going to run somebody off. I don't want to run off tenants, so it's best to do that when there's no tenant around, so that I can do those things however I want to do them. Now, when you buy a vacant building, some of the things you have to be careful of are, for instance, how long has this building been vacant? Because it's kind of a weird thing about vacant properties. When a building sits vacant for a long time, it starts to fall apart. If there's nobody in there using the property, the HVAC system's not on, the lights don't get turned on and off, and the plumbing doesn't get used, it starts to deteriorate, and even the roof starts to leak. Don't ask me why, but the roof will start to leak if there's nobody occupying the property for a long time. I've seen properties that have sat empty for a couple of years, and they have roof leaks, they have plumbing issues, and because the HVAC system has not been used and it's not climate controlled inside, things start to happen to the walls, to the paint, and bugs start to get in, and you just have a big mess if there's not somebody keeping it clean and using the property. So that's one thing to look at when a property is vacant for a long time. And also, if it's vacant for a long time, you should be able to get the price down even further, because obviously whoever owns it doesn't know what to do with it. They probably need to get rid of it. So that's a good opportunity to find somebody who's what I call a don't wanter. They don't want the property anymore because they can't deal with the vacancy and they need to get rid of it. So those are some good reasons right there to look for vacant properties, and a couple of things to look out for when you do buy them. And good luck on your search. Don't bypass buildings just because they're vacant. Look for the opportunity in those properties. Look for the fact that you should be able to get it at a lower price. If you can't get it at a lower price, maybe you should move on to another property, but most of the time you should be able to get that property at a much lower price than what it will appraise for when you get tenants in it. So that's about it for this time. See you next time on Real Estate Revenue.